On a stormy morning, a young black man from a struggling neighborhood set out for the most important job interview of his life. But along the way, he encountered an elderly man stranded with a flat tire. Even though stopping could cost him everything, he made a choice, one that would ultimately change his life forever. What he didn't know was that the old man was a powerful and mysterious CEO. Before we dive into this story, let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to hear your thoughts. The streets of Southbridge always look the same in the early hours. Cracked sidewalks, flickering street lights, and the steady hum of aging cars crawling past worn-down apartment blocks. The rain from the night before still clung to the pavement, turning the gutters into miniature rivers. Near a bus stop, a group of construction workers sipped coffee from paper cups, their voices low and eyes half closed with sleep. A few of them looked Marcus's way. Their stares weren't curious. They were quietly judgmental. Marcus Reed adjusted his tie with stiff fingers as he walked past, the weight of their looks pressing down on him like a stone. He knew exactly what they were thinking. A young black man in a suit walking through Southbridge at 6 in the morning. Must be heading to court, not to a job interview. He'd seen that look all his life, suspicion disguised as indifference. Still, he kept moving. He was 26, tall, lean, built like a runner, though he hadn't stepped foot in a gym in months. His skin was dark and smooth, his cheekbones sharp. His mother always called it his serious face, even when he was a kid. This morning, his jaw was clenched, his lips pressed tight into a line. His suit wasn't new, a faded navy blue, tailored just enough to hide the fact that it had come off a clearance rack 2 years earlier. It hugged his shoulders the same way his nerves clung to his chest, tight and unrelenting. He straightened his cuffs. The silver cufflinks caught a glint of the gray morning light. His mother's gift, his grandfather's old ones. They didn't match the suit, but they meant far more than fashion ever could. Marcus checked his reflection in the dark window of a corner laundromat. The eyes staring back were calm, but a knot twisted deep in his stomach. This wasn't just any job interview. It was the interview. Whitmore and Blake Financial Group, downtown Chicago. Glass towers, marble floors, 6-figure salaries, and an unspoken rule. Only the right people made it in, the right schools, the right families, the right neighborhoods. Marcus had none of that. Southbridge Public School, no legacy, no trust fund. But he had a perfect GPA from Chicago State, years of grinding through part-time jobs, and one precious letter of recommendation from Professor Myers, the only person who ever looked past where he came from. As he headed toward the train station, his phone buzzed. A text from his mom. "You got this, baby? Just be you. I love you." He swallowed the lump in his throat, slipped the phone back in his pocket, and pressed on. It didn't matter what those men at the bus stop thought. It didn't matter what the people downtown might assume when they saw his skin, his zip code, his name. All that mattered was getting in that building, shaking the right hands, and proving he belonged. The train hissed to a stop at Monroe Station, doors sliding open with a tired sigh. Marcus stepped out onto the platform, his polished shoes clicking on damp concrete. The cold morning air hit him hard, laced with the scent of wet asphalt and that sharp, metallic edge only cities seem to have. He pulled his coat tighter around him and merged into the river of commuters, heads down, shoulders hunched, coffee in hand. Everyone moved fast, eyes fixed on their screens, locked in their own little worlds. But even in the rush, Marcus felt something shift. Heads turned toward the sky, Phones rose, foreheads furrowed. Above the rooftops, the clouds had grown heavy and low, swirling in dark spirals that didn't belong to an ordinary spring day. A gust of wind swept down the street as Marcus emerged onto the sidewalk, nearly yanking his portfolio from his grip. He clutched it tighter, resumes, notes, market research, months of work tucked into a slim leather case. His heart thumped faster now, not just with nerves, but with unease. The air felt charged, like the city itself was holding its breath. Up ahead, beyond the crowd, the glass tower of Whitmore and Blake pierced the gray sky. It looked impossibly tall. The upper floors vanished into the clouds. 8:22 a.m. The interview was at 9 sharp. Still plenty of time. Then the first drop of rain hit, cold and sharp on his cheek. Another struck the back of his neck. Then more, dozens, hundreds. The sky opened up in a sudden, furious downpour. Within seconds, Marcus was soaked. His coat clung to him, his hair flattened. Around him, people scrambled for cover. Umbrellas flipped, horns blared. The streets turned to rivers. Marcus ducked beneath the narrow awning of a bakery, pressing his back against the cold brick. His eyes tracked the storm. It wasn't rain, it was chaos. The weather app had said light showers. This was biblical. He pulled out his phone, fingers slipping on the wet screen. Opened the rideshare app, nothing. He refreshed. Still nothing. The storm had paralyzed the city. He checked the time. 8:31. Still possible. If the rain eased. But it didn't. It got worse. Flyers swirled through the air. A man across the street slipped and fell, his briefcase skidding into a puddle. People ducked into shops, their designer clothes dripping. Marcus exhaled, forcing the tension from his chest. It wasn't over. He could still make it. He zipped his portfolio into his coat, pulled the collar high, and stepped into the storm. Every step was a splash. His shoes soaked through, his tie twisted in the wind. But he didn't stop. Because this was more than a job. It was his shot. A yellow taxi pulled up ahead, brake lights glowing. Marcus sprinted toward it, arm raised. But just before he reached it, a tall white man in a camel trench coat cut him off and dove into the back seat. The door slammed. The taxi sped off, spraying dirty water in its wake. Marcus stopped in the middle of the street, fists clenched. A delivery van swerved around him, horn blaring. His chest burned, not just from running, but from something deeper. He knew how this worked. Who got the cab? Who got the benefit of the doubt? Who was seen and who wasn't? He wiped the rain from his face and pushed forward. "Keep going," his mind screamed. "You can still make it. Just move." The tower was close now, just a few blocks. Then he saw the car. Black, expensive, parked awkwardly near the curb. One tire sagged, completely flat. The trunk was open, a spare tire half pulled out. Beside it, hunched under a battered umbrella, was an elderly white man, maybe late 60s, early 70s. His suit was soaked, his hands fumbling with a jack that kept slipping on the wet asphalt. Marcus slowed, rain still pouring, his heart pounding. No one else had stopped. Pedestrians hurried by, heads down, eyes averted. A couple on the far sidewalk glanced once, then kept walking. Marcus stood frozen, caught between instinct and ambition. Just beyond the traffic, he could still see the tower's lobby lights glowing like a beacon. This was it. His one shot. His clothes were ruined, his confidence threadbare, and he was already late. "Keep walking," his brain urged. "Someone else will help. You've worked too hard to blow this now." But his feet wouldn't move. Instead, his mother's voice echoed in his head. The same words she always told him as a boy, when he tried to ignore the old woman struggling with groceries outside their building. You're not better than helping someone just because you're in a hurry. Character matters more than timing. You don't help people just when it's convenient, Marcus. You help them because that's who you are. That's what separates a man from just another face in the crowd. His mother's words echoed in his mind. Marcus's jaw tensed. His fingers tightened around the soaked leather portfolio still clutched under his arm. Screw it. He stepped off the curb into the flooded street, water splashing around his ankles as he called out, "Sir, let me help you with that." The old man looked up, startled, rain running off the brim of his hat. His eyes blinked against the downpour, surprise clear in his face. I thought I had it," he said, his voice thin with a mix of frustration and weariness. "But this damn jack, it's slipping. The ground's too uneven." Marcus crossed the street quickly, carefully setting his precious portfolio on the back seat of the sedan, praying it wouldn't soak through any worse than it already had. Without hesitation, he pulled off his drenched suit jacket and laid it on the wet ground, kneeling beside the car. "You shouldn't be out here in this storm, sir," he said gently. The old man's eyes softened. The rigid lines around his mouth relaxed just a bit. "Storm caught me off guard," he muttered. "Driver's out sick. Haven't changed a tire in 20 years. Marcus didn't hesitate. His hands moved with practiced ease, checking the jack, adjusting the angle. The cold metal bit into his palms, but muscle memory kicked in. Summers spent working with his uncle at the Southbridge Auto Shop, patching flats on rusted-out pickups. It all came rushing back. "You know your way around a wrench," the old man noted, watching Marcus work with a curious expression. Marcus let out a small chuckle, tightening one of the lug nuts. "My uncle wouldn't let me drive his beat-up Chevy unless I could change a tire in under 10 minutes. The old man let out a quiet laugh, barely heard over the rain. Smart man. Time was slipping through Marcus's fingers like water down the street. He could feel every second evaporating. Still, he didn't rush. He finished the job right, hands sure and steady. At last, the final bolt clicked into place. Marcus stood up, brushing rain from his hands, slick with grease and grime. The old man straightened, offering his hand. "What's your name, son?" "Marcus. Marcus Reed." The man's gaze sharpened for a beat, just a flicker of interest behind his rain-streaked glasses. "You headed somewhere important, Marcus?" Marcus hesitated. He looked down at his soaked slacks, ruined portfolio, trembling fingers. The interview. The tower. Everything. "Yeah," he said, voice calm despite the storm. "The most important place I've ever gone." The black sedan pulled up silently in front of the towering glass facade of Whitmore and Blake. Its paint glistened beneath the rain, the engine purring beneath the hum of water drumming the windshield. Marcus stared out the window at the building. The lobby glowed with a soft golden light behind tall glass doors. Clean, bright, untouched by the chaos raging just beyond the sidewalk. He barely recognized the reflection staring back at him in the glass. Wrinkled, soaked, exhausted, a mess. "You sure you want to walk in there looking like that?" the old man asked from the driver's seat, his voice quiet and sincere. Marcus forced a tight smile. His jaw clenched. "I have to try." The old man nodded just once, his expression unreadable. His fingers tapped lightly on the wheel as Marcus pushed the door open. Cold rain slapped him in the face as he stepped out. The downpour had eased, but the city was still soaked in gray. Puddles shimmered in the pavement, reflecting the marble steps like cracked glass. Each step squelched beneath his soaked shoes. His jacket was waterlogged and useless, his shirt plastered to his skin, his tie hanging limp and twisted. The once polished image he'd so carefully prepared was now ruined. Inside, everything changed. The lobby was another world, warm, silent, immaculate. High ceilings soared above gleaming marble floors. Abstract art adorned pristine white walls. The air smelled faintly of lilies and something expensive he couldn't name. Marcus hesitated for a breath by the glass doors. Water dripped from his hair, his jacket, his hands, leaving a trail on the polished stone floor. He felt eyes on him. A man in a finely tailored coat gave him a quick once-over, lips tightening in quiet disapproval. A receptionist across the room leaned toward her co-worker and whispered something, her lips curving in a small, amused smirk. Marcus ignored them. He had to. The security desk stood near the elevators, sleek and minimal. Behind it, a tall guard in a navy blazer tapped away on a tablet. His eyes flicked up as Marcus approached, and sharpened. His gaze moved over Marcus's appearance, soaked, disheveled, clearly out of place. The guard straightened, his professional expression tightening. "Good morning," Marcus said, forcing his voice to sound calm, his grip firm on the dripping leather portfolio under his arm. "My name is Marcus Reed. I have a 9 a.m. interview with Whitmore and Blake's finance division." The guard's eyes narrowed slightly as he tapped at his screen. The moment dragged. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Finally, the guard spoke. "Yes, Marcus Reed." He nodded. "Finance division, 14th floor." He hesitated, fingers hovering over the tablet. "I should let you know, they're strict about time." Marcus exhaled slowly. "I understand," he replied, cutting himself off before he said more. There was no point explaining, not to him. The guard gestured to the elevators. "You can try, but no promises." Marcus nodded his thanks and walked across the lobby. Every wet footstep echoed loudly against the stone. He caught his own reflection in the elevator doors, shirt clinging to his chest, collar limp, cuffs wrinkled, slacks stained with city grime. His tie looked like it had melted onto his skin. The clean, composed professional image he'd spent years building was gone. All that remained was Marcus Reed, a young man from Southbridge standing in a whirl, 9:18. Her eyes softened just slightly, but her posture stayed formal. "I'm sorry, Mr. Reed." She spoke softly, her voice low but not unkind. "That would have been with Mr. Calloway. Unfortunately, he's already moved on to the next candidates. His schedule is very tight." Marcus's stomach twisted. He'd known this might happen, but hearing it aloud, feeling the weight of finality in her tone, hit like a punch to the ribs. He opened his mouth, struggling to keep himself composed. I know I'm late. The storm, I tried to get here, but there was an elderly man stranded with a flat tire. I couldn't just..." She raised a hand gently, eyes glancing toward the office doors behind her. "Mr. Reed, I understand," she said quietly. "But Mr. Calloway..." Her voice faded off. There was no space here for exceptions, no flexibility, no room for explanations, no matter how valid. Marcus swallowed hard. The words caught in his throat, dry and bitter like dust. "Could you at least tell him I came?" he asked, his voice cracking slightly despite his effort to sound steady. "That I tried?" He opened his portfolio and carefully pulled out one of the few resumes that had survived the rain. The edges were warped, the ink slightly smudged at the corners, but it was mostly legible. He extended it toward her with steady hands. The receptionist hesitated, then accepted it with a faint nod. "I'll make sure he gets this," she said. A trace of sympathy softened the smooth mask of her professionalism. For a moment, their eyes met. Hers calm, his raw, brimming with quiet heartbreak and frustration. Then it passed. Marcus turned toward the elevators, his steps heavy, shoes still squishing softly with every movement. His shoulders sagged beneath the weight of the morning, the storm, the lost opportunity, the sting of doing the right thing and still losing. The elevator doors opened with a soft, impersonal chime. He stepped inside and stared at his reflection in the mirrored walls, watching the rainwater drip from his coat onto the spotless floor. His chest tightened as the doors slid shut, sealing him off from the office, from the opportunity, from the dream he'd fought so hard to reach. The descent was silent, too quiet. The polished lobby greeted him once more, cold, clean, indifferent. As he stepped out into the open, the storm had finally begun to ease. Pale sunlight sliced through the thinning clouds, glinting off the wet streets. Marcus paused near the glass doors, staring blankly at the outside world. His jaw was clenched, his throat tight. The city moved on without him. Cars honked, people rushed past. No one noticed the soaked young man standing still, weighed down by the invisible burden of disappointment. He didn't rage. He didn't cry. He simply walked through the doors and stepped back into the city, back into the unknown. His dreams trailed behind him like the water still dripping from his ruined jacket. The morning sun over Southbridge didn't care about Marcus Reed's disappointment. It filtered through the threadbare curtains of his apartment, casting faint stripes of light across the chipped walls and the small battered kitchen table where Marcus sat hunched over his laptop. The radiator hummed in the background. Outside, a siren wailed faintly down the block. Life in Southbridge didn't pause for anyone's bad day. Marcus stared at the glowing screen in front of him. His fingers hovered above the keyboard. His resume glared back at him, cursor blinking like a silent reminder of everything that had gone wrong. The words blurred. His gaze drifted to the leather portfolio on the table, its edges still warped, the surface stained by rain and street grime. He'd tried to dry it last night by the fan in the corner, but the damage was already done. Permanent, like a scar. His suit jacket hung from a nail on the wall. The faint pattern of water stains stretched across the fabric. No dry cleaner in the world could erase them completely. A symbol, maybe. Or just another quiet defeat. His phone buzzed suddenly against the tabletop, snapping him out of his haze. His mother's face filled the screen. Soft eyes. That same stubborn, determined jawline he saw in the mirror every morning. He hesitated. His thumb hovered above the answer button. He hadn't told her yet. Not the full truth. She had been so proud when he landed the interview. She'd even mailed him his grandfather's cufflinks, wrapped in tissue paper, still carrying the faint scent of her lavender soap. Those same cufflinks were now in the pocket of his ruined jacket. The phone continued buzzing. Marcus inhaled deeply and answered, forcing his voice steady. "Hey, Ma." "Baby, I've been thinking about you all morning," she said. Her voice was like sunlight through clouds, warm and comforting. "Any news? Did you hear back from that big shot company?" His mouth opened. The words rested bitterly on his tongue. How could he tell her? That he'd made it all the way there. That he had sacrificed everything, done the right thing, and still walked away with nothing. That the world didn't care about a young black man from Southbridge with good intentions and wet clothes. Before he could say anything, Another call buzzed in across the top of the screen. Unknown number, Chicago area code. Mr. Platt? Ma, I have to take this. Might be about a job. Of course, honey, she said without hesitation. Go get him. He switched lines, his heart suddenly pounding in his chest, tight like a coiled spring. Hello? Mr. Reed? A woman's voice answered, crisp and professional, laced with calm confidence. This is Natalie Quinn, executive assistant to Mr. Richard Whitmore. I'm calling on his behalf to invite you to a meeting this afternoon at 2 o'clock, if you're available. Marcus froze. The world tilted beneath him. He gripped the phone tighter, trying to catch up to what he had just heard. Wait, I'm sorry. Did you say Mr. Whitmore, the CEO? Yes, sir, she replied without pause. The meeting will be on the executive level, 82nd floor. Would you like directions to the building? His heart was thundering. Every instinct screamed that this couldn't be real. A mistake, maybe? A polite formality? Some courtesy rejection? But there was nothing uncertain in her voice. No hesitation, just calm efficiency. Like this was the most ordinary request in the world. No, he said, breath catching. I know where it is. Excellent. We look forward to seeing you, Mr. Reed. The call ended with a soft click. Marcus stayed frozen in place, phone still pressed to his ear. For a long second, all he could hear was the low hum of the radiator, a neighbor's TV through the wall, and the heavy thump of his own heartbeat. He set the phone down slowly, his eyes locked on the leather portfolio. This couldn't be happening. He shot to his feet, nearly knocking his coffee mug to the floor. He grabbed his jacket from the wall, running his fingers over the rain-stained fabric, his mind already racing through. What came next was different. This time, there was no rain. No frantic dashes through flooded intersections. No missed chances. By 12:30, Marcus's suit was pressed, about as crisp as it could be under the circumstances. His shoes, still bearing the faint scars of the storm, were polished until the leather gave off a soft gleam again. He'd spent nearly an hour buffing them, as if he could scrub away the memory of soaked pavement, of humiliation in that gleaming marble lobby. He fastened the cufflinks at his wrists, silver, simple, and they caught a sliver of light as he straightened his sleeves. At exactly 1:17 p.m., a yellow cab rolled up in front of the shimmering glass of the Whitmore and Blake building. The storm clouds were gone now, replaced by a crisp, sharp blue sky that stretched wide over the city like a clean slate. The air was fresh. The sidewalks were still damp, but drying quickly under the summer sun. Marcus stepped out, adjusted his tie, and looked up. The tower didn't seem quite so impossibly tall anymore. Still intimidating, still a symbol of wealth and power, the kind he'd spent years trying to reach. But this time, it wasn't looming above him like a challenge. Today, he'd been invited in. The lobby was familiar now, the same polished floors, the same hushed reverence in the air. But the energy was different. The man at the security desk barely looked up before scanning Marcus's name and handing him a black access badge with a gold emblem that shimmered beneath the lights. Executive access, the guard confirmed, his voice all business. No judgment, just protocol. Marcus walked toward the elevators, the black badge cool in his hand. His pulse remained steady, though adrenaline simmered beneath his skin. As the mirrored elevator doors slid shut, his reflection stared back at him. Sharper now, more defined. A man who still carried questions and uncertainty, but no longer ran from them. As the elevator climbed, so did something in his chest, not fear, Anticipation, possibility. 82 floors later, the doors opened to another world. Floor-to-ceiling windows lined the hallway, flooding it with light. Sun poured across the polished floors and sleek furniture. Every piece of art looked like it cost more than Marcus's entire apartment building. A woman in a tailored navy suit approached with the smooth confidence of someone who belonged in a place like this. Her smile was professional, but not cold. "Mr. Reed, I'm Natalie Quinn. We spoke earlier." "Yeah," Marcus replied, voice calm despite the quiet storm stirring just beneath the surface. "We did. Mr. Whitmore will see you as that I was the one who signed your interview invitation." Richard finished, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "That's exactly why it mattered." Marcus blinked, a tight knot forming in his chest. I missed the interview. I thought that was it." Richard gestured to the chairs in front of the desk and moved around with the quiet efficiency of a man in total control. "Sit, Marcus." He obeyed, sinking into the smooth leather. His hands rested on the worn, damp portfolio sitting on his lap. Richard didn't speak right away. He walked to the windows, clasping his hands behind his back, eyes sweeping the city like a man surveying his legacy. 58 years ago, Richard began, his voice calm but full of memory. I stood in a factory outside Pittsburgh, cheap suit, nervous, completely out of my depth. Marcus sat motionless, focused entirely. I asked a man 3 times my age to believe in an idea I could barely explain. And he did. Richard turned slightly, the sun outlining the years etched into his face. But his eyes still burned with clarity, with drive. He said yes. Changed my life. This company doesn't exist without that moment. Marcus felt every word. Not just heard them, felt them. Hope, once cautious, now began to rise in full. Richard walked back to the desk, opened a drawer, pulled out something Marcus hadn't expected, the leather portfolio, the one Marcus had left behind that day in the storm. The edges were still warped, the pages slightly curled. The scars of that day hadn't vanished. Richard placed it gently on the desk between them. "You left this in my car," he said. Richard placed the worn portfolio gently on the desk between them. "I took the liberty of reading it," he said. Marcus swallowed hard, throat dry, his eyes drifting to the battered folder. Part of him wanted to apologize for its rain-soaked condition. Another part knew there was no undoing the storm, no rewriting that morning. Richard opened the folder, carefully sliding a few pages forward. "Your market analysis on Southeast Asia, sharp. Your cover letter, honest, personal, rare." He looked up, gaze calm, unwavering. "But that's not why you're here." Marcus's fingers twitched, nerves sparking beneath the surface. "It's not." Richard shook his head once, deliberate and composed. "I've been hiring people for decades, Marcus. I can't teach character. I can teach finance. I can train someone to read a balance sheet or construct a portfolio. But I can't teach who someone is when no one's looking." The words hung between them, heavy, simple, and full of meaning. Most people standing in your shoes that morning, soaked, cold, late, would have kept walking. And I wouldn't have blamed them. He paused. "But you didn't." Marcus stayed silent. The memory washed over him, the rain, the frustration, his mother's voice echoing softly in his mind. "You stopped," Richard continued. "You helped. Not because there were cameras, not because anyone was watching, but because it was the right thing to do." He leaned back in his chair, folding his hands calmly atop the desk. I've built this company on decisions made in quiet moments, when no one is watching. That morning, you showed me everything I needed to know. Marcus felt his throat tighten. A knot of disbelief, pride, and long-sought validation rose in his chest, almost too much to contain. I appreciate that, sir. More than I can express. Richard's eyes softened just slightly. The corners creased with the weight of experience and something gentler beneath it. I'm not offering you an analyst position, Marcus. Not the entry-level role you originally came for. For a moment, Marcus's heart dipped. The words hit with a quiet, unexpected weight. But Richard wasn't finished. I'm offering you something else. He leaned forward, voice lowering, more resolute now. You'll work directly with me. Special assistant. You'll sit in rooms people spend 10 years clawing their way into. You'll listen, learn, observe. It won't be easy. It won't always be comfortable. But once you walk away, you'll leave with a foundation no textbook, no degree, no classroom could ever give you. Marcus stared at him. The offer landed in his chest like a stone, solid, real, terrifying in its significance. Why me? The question slipped out before he could hold it back, raw, honest, shaped by years of watching doors shut before he could even reach them. Richard smiled. Not a polite corporate smile, but one that came from memory, from understanding. Because someone once believed in me. Before I'd earned it. And it changed everything. He extended his hand once more. Steady, calm, carrying the full weight of the opportunity between them. Marcus reached out and gripped it, his fingers closing around Richard Whitmore's with quiet strength. Not as the drenched, uncertain man who'd once knocked on locked doors, but as someone seen, chosen, respected,